Thank you for helping us focus this morning. Today we start a new sermon series, and as you heard me say, it's called Power Up. Before I get too much further, though, I just want to say a couple of things. The title of the sermon is, Oh, the Places We've Been, which is really a play off of Dr. Seuss's book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. And I find this is my great excuse as we start sermon series like this every year to reflect on the last year of ministry. In just a few moments, you'll hear me talk about some of the things that you've helped us to do as we seek to become Christ in community, the many ways that we try our very best to be the hands and feet of Christ. But I got to say, I'm just now in my 10th year of ministry at a seminary, and I love you guys. I'm in awe of the ways that so many of you continue to strive to be authentic in your faith. For wherever you are in your faith journeys, I feel like almost every day, somebody I get to interact with in our community or here just teaches me something new about how we can live out our faith in awesome ways. I feel like I have the best job in the world. So before we talk about stewardship or anything else, I want to say thank you. It is a joy to work here. It is a joy to serve as one of your pastors. I don't want to be anywhere else. And if I am going to be somewhere else, that's the bishop's call. But gosh, this is fun. I've never been in a place where so many people are excited about what God could possibly do. And it seems like almost every step along the way, people get excited and they want to try something new. There's a feeling of it's okay to try something new. And if it fails, what can we learn from that? How can we do more? There's a level of graciousness that's here that's pretty awesome. So I know I'm patting you on the back a bit. But you know what? I think every once in a while it's okay to do that because things are happening here. And it's about you, but it's not about you. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. What's our purpose again, friends? Do you remember? Oh my gosh, that was not good. All right. Becoming Christ in the community, that's our purpose. Let me talk about that for a second before we go too much further. April has a slide for me here. The way I translate that is this way. Becoming Christ in our community means this. It means that we reflect the grace and love that Jesus offers us where we live, where we work, and where we play. No one can be Christ better where you live, work, and play than you. You are perfectly gifted for where you're called to be here and now, wherever it is. And if you don't have a place where you work, wherever you spend most of your time, if you don't have a place where you're learning, maybe it's an opportunity to see where God is teaching you. This also means that we have the opportunity to discover what God is already doing in our communities, because we're not the only game in town, friends. God's doing amazing things with churches, with individuals, and with nonprofits, far beyond what we can do here. But the cool part about what God is already doing is we get to add to what God's doing everywhere. That's what's neat. It's not all on our shoulders. Sometimes we look at the 12 disciples and we think just because Jesus had those 12 named, that was all on their shoulders. But if we look back at the biblical history of what was happening there were so many more followers of Jesus, so many more people who did amazing things. And that's what it means for us to become Christ in the community. It means to reflect the grace we get and to acknowledge, kind of like tour guides, what's already happening in the places where we are. So when we talk about stewardship, I want that to be our basis for everything we're doing here. This is about numbers to some degree, but more importantly than that, this is about seeing where God is doing amazing things and saying, what can I offer in light of what you're already doing? And as we look at it that way, we are freed to do amazing things because we worship a really amazing God. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened this last year. I think it's good every once in a while to reflect. I have to confess to you, my original sermon was about 3.5 hours long. Because all the things that we're doing, there's just a lot. If you want to know more, know this. All the things I'm about to say to you is a drop in the bucket. And more importantly than that, if you don't resonate what I'm about to share with you, some of the things we've done, we have the flexibility to say, how can we engage in where ministry can happen? So here's an example of that. One of the things that we've recently done is we had a family last Easter who came up to us and said, I have a child who is cognitively differently abled. This child of mine I love, but gives me 110% of my time. It's really hard. I want to come to worship, but I can't do that. Thanks to you all, thanks to our staff and our folks, our response wasn't, well, let's put up a little bit of red tape and make it harder for you. I'm sorry, we just don't have the ability to take care of you and your child. The response was the exact opposite. The question, not my question, somebody else said, how can we serve you? And so now we have a program that is funded and supported called Wonderfully Made. At our 9 and 10:30 services, if you have someone on the spectrum with individual needs, we have folks who are trained and folks who are learning how to care for them. And the point is not to get people to believe a certain thing. The point is this. Somebody needed a way to interact with God and engage with God. We had the resources to do it, and we're now figuring out how to do it. Is it perfect every Sunday? No way. But we're working towards it. That gets me really excited. And I'm excited about that. Here's some other things happening. How many people, you don't have to raise your hand, but think about this. How many people have given blood in our blood drives we've had? Did you know that this last year we've had 100 registered donors? Of the 100 registered donations we've had, we had 87 collections of units of blood. Here's how this works, basically. You divide that into 3 components: platelets, plasma, and whole blood. That means that we've helped to save possibly up to 261 lives. That's good. We've always done 4 a year. Thanks to the leadership of our church leaders, we now have 6 scheduled for 2015. To me, that's really exciting. That's using our space in creative ways. We also have been working with our Bothell Community Kitchen, which we'll talk a bit more about in the ministry moment. And we have a lot of community partners. This isn't an advertisement for those community partners, but I think it's important to acknowledge folks and businesses that do help us become Christ in the community. Folks like Starbucks, the PCC, Hillcrest Bakery, and the Kenmore Safeway. We glean from them at least once a week, if not more, and help to share those foods with those who are in need. We also share that food at the Union Mission in Everett, or Camp Unity, which is Tent City in Kirkland. And across the street from us, we work with the North Shore School District. And we've given 30 backpacks of school supplies for kids K through 12 in our district. That's pretty cool. Atlantic Street Center, some pastor about a year ago said, great, we had like $50 we donated. And he opened his big mouth and said, wouldn't it be great if we had 100 next year? And lo and behold, you all helped to make $100 for the Atlantic Street Center of individual clothes for younger teen moms who have babies who are in need, who can give a first-made gift for those in need. That's pretty cool. $100 is really hard. I tried to knit one dress, did not do it well. It was beautiful. It was purple and gold, trying to put the W on it. I failed, but you didn't, and that was pretty neat to be able to see that. We also had 6 people from Bothell United Methodist Church assist with Habitat for Humanity, and together we've built Big Build program as well. And that was pretty exciting, and we also support orphanages from Jamaletu, and we've been sponsoring 2 children for many years. Farmer Brown in our community garden, which we have just across the street there, has harvested to date 233 pounds of harvest, and this is all donated to HopeLink. Our community kitchen, which I mentioned before, we're averaging about 60 folks. The thing about the community kitchen is this: if I stood up here and said we average about 6 folks, I would be just as proud. Because the point about this isn't about the numbers, it's about people needing to connect with one another. And it's not about their economic status, because lots of our folks who come just need fellowship as well, and there's something beautiful about that. We had one of our volunteers at the last service at the 8 a.m. River, Ben Weisgoogle, said this, and I loved how he put it. He said, what Bothell Community Kitchen is for me is it's our opportunity to show the best of who we are. That's amazing. That he sees that as one of his greatest expressions of faith, not by talking to people about Jesus, but by showing Jesus' love in his actions. We also support Threads and Treads, which is a clothing bank for about 30 North Shore School District families, which is supported by our donations of clothing, socks, and underwear. If you walk down our hallway and you put your coat up, there's these big wood boxes. Take a look at them. Those are all donation opportunities of nonprofits that we work with and we serve with as well. And we have a Building Better Moms program, which was inspired this last year and started last week. We currently have 24 participants in Building Better Moms. This is not the way they say it, but the way I try to understand what Building Better Moms is, it's kind of like MOPS, but with a theological inclination. So it's a way of fellowship of folks to be able to grow and help to be the best that they can in all that God has created them. And we also have over 30 volunteers for Care Day, which happened in August of 2014. It was kind of fun, by the way, because as I walked around and saw all of the many people volunteering and helping clients who are in need of human services, there were many of our volunteers, many of you, who did things you wouldn't normally do. I had more than one people say, take a picture of my spouse or husband, because I never see that person do this before. But you do that Care Day because it's showing the best of who we are, which is really neat. We had 10 people travel to the Umpqua Depot in Salt Lake City, and there's another opportunity for missions like this in March of 2015. And we also serve 50 to 60 high school kids in our lunch program that we call Bothell High Brown Bag Lunch Program. So you all probably know this, but the part of the vision of when we were planted here at Bothell United Methodist Church was to be in direct relationship with a high school, which is across the street from us. So what's been neat is we've had a good relationship for years, and part of the relationship has been, how can we help you? How can we help feed you? But now there's been a little bit more opportunity to ask questions like, just beyond mercy things like helping to feed, but how can we help move families from in need, from transient to homed? And asking really tough questions about that. So there's really exciting opportunities that we're working on now to help not just feed families who are in need, but to actually help them move in that transition life process. Our children's ministry, I asked Jemmy Godwin-Smith before she had her beautiful baby to give me a little bit of information about the ministry they've done this last year. She said that they serve about 340 kids per month with volunteer hours logging over 3,500 hours a year, which is amazing. And they currently average on a Sunday between all of our services about 50 kids a Sunday. Now, that's kind of big for us because about 2 years ago, we averaged about 20. And I know that numbers aren't everything, but to some degree, when excitement happens, people start to invite their friends. And that's one way of gauging health. It's not the only way, because discipleship is the bottom line for us. But it's a way of saying, this is how we can serve our community and our needs. And through that children's ministry program, this idea of Wonderfully Made, which I just told you about, came forth as well. As well as in a couple of weeks, we'll be talking about our children's ministry room, which is almost in the final stages of being renovated as well. And during Holy Week last year, we did have that opportunity when that folks came in and said, I have a need. And it was neat to be able to see our church rally around this one family and to do an assessment of our community and realize that this ministry opportunity for people on the spectrum with special needs is something that we can really serve beyond who we are. And it's not just about getting people to be here on a Sunday morning. It's about doing it because it's our responsibility, because we have the gifts and graces to share Christ's love in that way. Our music department, if you're here at the Roots, you kind of know how our music is going by at least one snippet here. But our choir, we love you. You guys are awesome. But beyond the choir, just here, there's actually 3 different types of musical programs in terms of just like choir. We have a chant program, a chant choir at the 8 a.m., and we have a worship ensemble at the 10:30. We have over 100 people within all the diverse musical offerings that we have. Basically, if you want to participate and sing in one way or another, we have a great staff that helps you to express that. And it's really, really powerful. In many ways, our choir and music departments function like our core groups, where they pray for one another, they do devotions, and they have an opportunity to dig deeper with each other. Our youth ministry department has been really exciting for me too. We have 63 different youth who are connected to our youth ministry program. And this past spring, we confirmed 5 students who have said that they believe in Jesus and they're excited to walk in their faith. And that's pretty exciting too. What's exciting as I began to look at this last year of ministry for ourselves is, the first thing I did was I looked at our church calendar. And I learned a lot by looking at our calendar. And you're going to see in the next few months, we're going to be changing a few things by trying to make more space for our community. But before we get to that point in a few months, what I noticed about our church calendar is this. When I first came on board here about 2+ years ago, we were asking questions like this. Pastor DJ, how can we fill our rooms? Because it seems like we just have a lot of space that we're not using right now. That's not the question right now. The question is, how can we utilize every inch of our church to serve our communities? Do you notice the subtle shift there? It's really kind of cool to see how folks are beginning to see our space and the sacred space that we have as opportunities for missions and ministry, which is kind of cool. Again, I really wish I could talk about Stephen's Ministers or more about United Methodist Men or United Methodist Women or prayer shawl ministry. I do want to tell you just one thing about the prayer shawl ministry, though. It's a quiet ministry of folks who knit or crochet prayer shawls, and they pray for folks, and they give it to them. My family has received that. I had a summer I'm glad is behind me now with my grandmother dying, my father-in-law dying. But receiving those prayer shawls is just such a sacred moment. And if you've received it, you know what it's like. And if you're someone who's in need of that, we ask that you contact our church office because we can support you in that way too. We also have a music program called Ubi Cartas for folks who are maybe more homebound but have a deep love for hymns and music. We have a group of volunteers who are willing to go where you are to be able to sing hymns and share Christ's love in that way. That's really cool. That's really exciting. This morning, the passage that Lee Huffman read to us, it talks about this idea of treasure. Pastor Lee really explained it well to our children this morning. But many people look at this passage in Matthew and they say that this is at the heart, kind of the central point of Jesus' sermon on what it means to be authentic disciples. When he's trying to tell his disciples and his followers, how do you follow me? It's like this. And he gives this huge list of ways that we can be authentic followers of Christ, which is pretty exciting. But as I look back at what the scripture talks about and reflect upon the places we have been, I continue to ask myself new questions like this. How are we doing with our resources that we have? Because sometimes when I think about stewardship, trying to plan for the next year, I think about if only we did this more, if only we can go to this space, if only we can stretch ourselves this way. But this year, as I meditate and pray about where we are as a church, the questions that's been coming to my mind more is, with what we have, how can we offer that to God? With the gifts and graces that are already present, with what God has already given us, how can we share? And the question I've been asking myself, just to be on a more confessional stage with you, is I've been asking myself is, as DJ Del Rosario, will I own up to my responsibility as a human being, as a member of this community where we live? Or will I shrink into the shadows and take the easy road? Those are questions I'm beginning to ask myself in the next 4 weeks as we're discerning how to invest in our church by our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness. But one thing I realize is this. It's hard to talk about the gifts and graces we have and how to connect unless we actually clarify what membership looks like in our church. And I realized in the last couple of years that we talk all the time about coming to church and doing things, but sometimes we shriek from talking about this is what we're hoping you can do to be a member of our church. So for the last couple of months, when we've had these membership classes on the first Sundays, I've been sharing these words. And I'm going to present these to you in just a second. What I realized is, as many new members as we're welcoming and transfer members, I haven't told you about this. So we're going to spend some time talking about what it means to be a member of Bothell UMC. You don't have to agree with me, but this is the bar that I want to set for us as we seek to become Christ in the community. So here's the first point. Membership does not give privileges. It just has responsibilities. Here's how that plays out. If you choose to be a member or not of our church, that doesn't mean that Pastor Lee and I will or will not visit you more or less. If you choose to be a member or not, it doesn't mean that we'll pray for you more because you give to our church. We'll treat everyone the exact same way because that's what we're called to do and we love you. But if you say that this is your church home, if you say that this is where you grow in your faith and you want to connect, this is what we're asking that you do so we can be of the same mind and go toward the same vision together. Here's our first slide. First one is to worship regularly. Attend worship every weekend unless you're sick or out of town, and members who are traveling out of town are encouraged to attend services in the location where they are visiting. So this is kind of funny because pretty much every church statistic says this. A regular worship attender attends church twice a month. And here I am saying to you, worship every week. So here's how I'm going to spin this thing. The bar is going to go higher because of this. If we do our jobs well, and we anticipate that God is doing something amazing, you won't feel like you need to come to church. You're going to want to come to church. The question I'm constantly asking myself when I get here on a Sunday morning and this place is empty is, A, will people show up? It's honestly, it's a human part of me. Can God do something amazing here? Will people actually show up and can God be experienced? And B, will people want to be here? Numbers are one thing, but discipleship is what we're all about. So if we can encourage you and inspire you to make this your charging station, a place where you know for 1 hour out of your week that you can just get fully charged, whether it's through the sermon or through the scripture read or through the music, in some way or another, we want you to want to be here. And if we aren't meeting that, talk to me. Because we're going to do our very best to learn and to listen and to adapt. We can't make everyone happy, but we can do our very best to be authentic in our process of learning. That's why nothing is so sacred that we can't change it. Because we know God is constantly calling us to be and do more. So that's the goal. If you're a member, we want you to be here. I don't want to be apologetic about any of these things. Because I believe that when we're present, when we're fully here, God's going to do something amazing. And we shouldn't apologize for what God can do in our lives. Second slide. To grow in your faith by participating in a small group study. One example is core groups. I just mentioned before. Another example is by connecting to a group like a core group. We have a duckling club that has about 10 people a week that comes on Monday mornings. Grandma Judy reads books. To me, that's like a core group. Those are folks who connect every week, and they have different ways of being more than just passive worshipers. They're actually choosing to connect in new ways. And so here's how this plays out in other ways. It's to participate in one activity each year aimed at helping you grow in your faith apart from worship attendance. So this is where we go from everything's fluffy and nice to a little bit stronger here. My hope is that this is where you're drawn into on a Sunday morning, that you like worship, that you're excited. But if we stop here, then we're not doing our job as a church. We want to invite you to be so excited about your faith that you want to participate in Care Day or in things of other natures that you can express your faith in really amazing ways. Because what we know is this, is we have millions of United Methodists. If we actually all get on the same page, we can out-influence anybody. We can do amazing things to really change our world. The way we can do that is by starting here at Bothell UMC. And I believe that God has a plan for us, Jeremiah 29. I believe that God can do something amazing here. I believe God is already doing something amazing here. The way that we do that is by owning up to the gifts that we have here. Next slide. To help us to live out our purpose of becoming Christ in community. This may be new to you. It's the 1-2 rule is what we're calling it. Here's how it goes. 1 hour in church service. This isn't count. This is sweet, I love y'all, but this isn't it. What that means is if we have a funeral and we need help people who are serving and to be hosts in that way, that's an example of 1 hour of church service. It means intentionally giving of your time 1 hour a month to becoming Christ in this community where we are. And there are lots of opportunities for that. There's people who've donated plots of our gardens and they weed. To me, that counts. There are many ways that you can live that out. Here's the second one, and it's really intentional that it's weighed differently. 2 hours in your community. So yeah, we love you here, but if we're all happy here and everyone pats each other on the back for being at church, but we never actually connect our faith to where we live, work, learn, and play, it means nothing. So if you were to find 2 hours of intentional community wherever you are, and you're the best minister for where God has placed you, that could be amazing. One example is this. I had somebody, a new members class, and said, I presented this model of 1 hour in church and 2 hours in the community. Person said this, well, I'm going to sing in the choir. I'll be connected to that. Now you're looking, trying to wonder who it is. Don't worry about that. And he said this, at the community center where I'm at, I'm a retired person who worked a lot with computers. I'm going to help folks who are older like me learn how to use their computers so they can connect with their friends and their family and their grandchildren. That's more than 2 hours a month. To me, that's a great example of using the gifts and graces that God has given them. So what I want you to do is to start thinking about not what you aren't doing, but where God is already active and how you can join in what God's already doing in your communities and in your church. You kind of get that part? Cool. Next slide. To give in proportion to your income. Give of your time in Christian service at least once a year, and through prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. Later on in this service, we're going to present to you our budget. In lots of churches, it's kind of scary. You kind of get nervous. You don't want to talk about money and numbers. Again, I don't want to apologize about this. We do have to keep our lights on. We do have staff that do things. Now, I know when I go to a fundraiser somewhere else, I look at their budget. I want to know, are they being good stewards of the finances that they have? And if they don't present it well, and if I don't trust what they're doing, I won't give. That expectation should be the same here. You should expect that we are open books and that we do the very best we can to be responsible with our finances. And we have a great check and balance system, but we're always learning how to do that better. So I really want you to know this, that to give in proportion to your income could mean baby steps to move towards that. And in many ways, you may need to start at one point and kind of move towards whatever your goal is. A tithe is up to 10%. But the goal is to be able to get to that point. Now, I thought about that for this sermon, and I realized something. All I'm doing right now is I'm asking you to do something for the church. That doesn't feel very balanced to me. So what we're doing now is we're going to offer a couple of different classes in the next 4 weeks to give you an opportunity to be balanced yourself. One class is going to be shared by Faye Belowing. She's offering classes starting on October the 12th, Sunday after church, a morning offering, and an evening offering during the week. She's a financial consultant. So if you have challenges or you'd like some help learning how to budget, learning how to balance your books, if there's credit card challenges in your life, if there's any challenge that you have in that area, we want to provide a free workshop where you can begin to budget towards that. But it's not just about the numbers also, it's about learning that through a theological lens. So I'm really excited that Faye's willing to donate that time so that we can learn how to invest, because it's not fair for us to ask you to invest unless we give you opportunities to become a better person in budgeting as well. I wouldn't take my kids to vacation at Disneyland and say, I hope that we get there. And the day before go, do we have enough money? That doesn't make sense. My wife and I sit down, we plan out our budget, and we say, what can we afford? How can we get there? What are we willing to sacrifice? What this class is, it gives you a chance with faith and finances to learn how to look at it through that lens. But finances aren't the only thing, because we talk about prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. So the other class that we're offering is by Catherine Ratliff. She's a student at Bastyr University. She's a holistic health coach, and she's going to be offering 3 classes. Again, it's a free workshop on mind, body, and spirit. I've worked with her myself, and my family works with her. What she does is she talks about how we can be healthy in our souls as well as our physical self. So she's going to do a workshop that talks about, here's how you can shop at the grocery. If you go to work or you go to school, here's some examples of lunches you can bring that will help you keep you staying healthy. So it's not about finances, it's less about the Bible study, but it's more about being holistically healthy. She's even going to talk about your pantry. What can we stock in our pantry for good snacks to be healthy? Again, we're asking you to invest in what we're doing in the church. So therefore, we want to invest in you, not just in how you know how to take care of your budget, but how you can be healthy holistically. And on top of that, Pastor Lee and I will be preaching the next several weeks from a theological perspective on how we can live that out. So friends, this is an exciting time for us. It's not going to be about trying to make you feel guilty. We want you to want. We want you to be inspired. We want you to know that we will be good stewards of it. And if we make a mistake, we will confess it to you. Because we make mistakes as church. I'm human, Pastor Lee's human, but we're going to do our best to be open to you as we ask you to be open to us so we can be authentic in our calling. The last thing I want to do is this. This visioning for living out our calling, it only works if we do it as a community. So I have a favor to ask of you, please. Will you help me out, please? In the next 4 weeks, at some point, will you drop me a note or an email, please, and tell me what your vision is for our church 50 years from now? What's your vision for our church 50 years from now? The reason why I chose the number 50, if you're wondering, is because it's guaranteed that I won't be here. Kind of fun, but the truth is, this isn't about DJ as a senior pastor or you as somebody who's always going to be here. This is about something bigger than us. This is about what God is doing in our community long after we've been here. We've been around for what, Ron, 128 years? If we want to be around for another 300 years, we have to know where we're going. To know where we're going, it's not about what Pastor Lee says or what Pastor DJ says. It's about the community of followers dreaming something bigger than what one person can dream. We worship a God who is bigger than my imagination. Let's offer together a vision that is greater than ourselves. And as you do, we're going to collate this information, and I'll share with you some of the dreams that we have. One example is this. I've been asking folks, what's your dream 50 years from now? And some of you have shared that. One person said this, which I thought was crazy but awesome. He said, Pastor DJ, I want our parking lot to be covered by solar panels. And I thought, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of cool. How does that work? And he said, well, we can go completely off the grid, and we can begin to actually be good stewards, because that's a part of what it means to be a person of faith. The first thought I had, and it came out of my mouth, and I'm so embarrassed about this, but I said, that's going to be pretty tough. How much does that cost? I put up red tape. I put up reasons why it wouldn't work. So for me, this is exactly why it's a community discernment time. Because you can have a vision and a dream that we could actually live out, but only if we're listening to God, only if we're investing in what God is saying to where we are right now. Let's dream something so big it's ridiculous. And know that we worship a God whose grace is unbelievable. And as we do that, we know that the time we're spending now is so amazing, because God is so great that we can know that our kids' kids and our kids' kids' kids will know that God's love's for them. That we can be more than just responders to our faith, but we can be prophetic in our communities. I don't want to shrink anymore. I want to know that God's doing something amazing, and I would love for you to join us in that. Will you pray with me, please? Gracious God, for what you're doing in our hearts and the amazing ways that you call us to be Christ in our communities. We offer our dreams to you. We offer our visions to you. And we ask that you can help us to live out our calling, for the gifts and graces we have, for the moments that we want to slow down and ask tough questions. We give you thanks for that. But Lord, for the collective wisdom of the communities where we live, we give you thanks for that. May we represent all that you are. May we dream dreams that are truly amazing, because we worship you, God, whose love is unbelievable. Thank you for calling us to be and do more. In your Son's name, Jesus, who is truly amazing. Amen.